In the last video, we encouraged you to practice silence and prayer at the beginning of your day. But one thing we recognize is for a lot of people, especially when you are just starting out doing that, all of the different distractions, how do we actually achieve that inward silence that we talked about? We can quiet our minds to spend that time with God. And so we wanted to add this as if it's helpful for you as you practice that silence and that time with God. I think, first of all, one thing that the Christian tradition has always done, a practice of what we would call centering prayers or breath prayers. If you can bring your body and mind in alignment with your prayer life, that can help you actually be present in the moment that you're in. And so one thing for me it's been helpful, I go back to the Old Testament scripture where we read the line, "Speak, Lord, your servant is listening." Yeah. And so there's a variety of breath prayers, and you can find a bunch of different and use really any scripture you want to. But this one for me has been helpful. God, if I am meeting with you in prayer, I want to hear from you. Yes. And so as I would breathe in, I would think or pray in my mind, "Speak, Lord." Amen. And then as I would breathe out, "Your servant is listening." And you just say that 4, 5, 6, 10 times. And you'll notice your heart rate might come down. Your brain start to slow down. That's intentionally not very many words on purpose. Yeah. To make myself slow down and to be present in the moment that I'm in, just to try to settle and still myself in that space that I'm in. I know you've had some different verses in different ways that's helped you too.
Yeah, and I do think bringing a Bible verse into these practices really does help fill our minds with the good and the beautiful truth about who God is and who we are. Psalm 46:10 is one a lot of us know, right? So it says, "Be still and know that I am God." And so one of the ways that you can do that is just to take each 30 seconds or minute, begin to reduce that phrase. And so you start with, "Be still and know that I am God." And just kind of sit and, think about that truth that He is God, right? And then you shorten it and say, "Be still and know that I am." Connections to Jesus and God in the Old Testament, the "I am" phrases, right? And our minds begin to wander, but in that moment it's okay because we want them to wander about who God is. And then you shorten it maybe after another 30 seconds or a minute. "Be still and know." Okay, what do I know today? What do I know about myself? What do I know about God? And then after another 30 seconds or a minute, "Be still." Okay, help me to be still right now, God. And then finally, just end with "be." And so that's another way, right, to sort of use Scripture to get us thinking really good thoughts. But sometimes our minds can wander, right?
And even as you mentioned that, I think one of the most helpful things for me, and I know in the church, as I have taught and helped people, how do we begin to pray, is to realize that most all of us really struggle with the wandering mind or whatever you want to call it. For me, I'll often share it this way too. I'll sit down to pray and I'll begin to pray through my day. God, would you help me today in the meetings that I have? And I'll have the meeting after that, and God, I'm going to need the words. I don't know what to say to them. And then after that is dinner, and man, I wonder what's for dinner tonight.
Right?
I hope my wife's making some tacos. I love some tacos. And if you've ever experienced it, you're like, no, I sit down to pray. How did I get to tacos? Right? But I think even in that moment, a lot of times what we can do is become very frustrated with ourselves. Oh, I can't pray. I sit down to pray and I can't make my mind do that. But instead in that moment, take whatever it is that when you catch yourself, and then just bring that thing back into prayer.
Sure.
So in that very silly example, but is sometimes true, I think, about dinner often. Man, I hope my wife's making tacos. Oh, I'm supposed to be praying right now. God, would you bless my wife? And
Amen.
thank you that you've given me the spouse that you have. I thank you for who she is and what she does. And you continue on in prayer. And I think right alongside that, and you've said this, and I think it's been helpful for me as well, is when you're praying, if you have a pencil or a pen, which is probably better than our phones so we don't get distracted.
Right.
But when a thought comes to mind of like, oh, I legitimately need to do that later and I don't want to forget it, great, write it down. And then if we write it down there, we know I'll get to it later. So now I can come back to maybe the most important work, or coming back to talking with God. And so ultimately we hope that these little practices, or thinking about how you think about prayer, will help you as you grow in your prayer life, as you practice this silence, to be centered and still with God, and to keep coming back to Him as you practice this.